Have you ever just stopped and wondered why good, smart people in different parts of the world can look at the exact same thing and come to completely opposite conclusions about whether it's right or wrong? How can one person's virtue be another person's sin? Okay, let's get into it.
Imagine this scene. An anthropologist is interviewing a Brahmin widow in a temple town in India. He asks her about a certain behavior, and her judgment is immediate and severe. She doesn't even have to think about it. For her, this isn't some gray area. It is a great sin.
So, what was this horrible transgression? Eating fish a few times a week. Yeah, you heard that right. To many of us, that sounds completely baffling. How could something so ordinary be seen as a serious moral failing? This little puzzle actually gets right to the heart of understanding totally different moral worlds.
To really understand this, we've got to first look at the old way of thinking about morality. For a long, long time, the main idea was that all societies were basically just climbing the same moral ladder. Some were just, a few rungs higher than others.
This idea was really shaped in a huge way by a psychologist named Lawrence Kohlberg. His theory was super influential, and it basically said that our moral reasoning grows through a set of fixed stages. And here's the key part. Everyone, everywhere, was supposedly on the exact same path, heading toward one single, ideal destination.
So, Kohlberg's levels start simple and get more complex. You start out at pre-conventional, where it's all about me. What's good for me, what's bad for me. Then you grow into conventional, which is all about us, following the rules of our group. But the peak, the top of the mountain, was post-conventional thinking, which is all about abstract, universal ideas like justice and individual rights.
But here's the thing. There was a huge problem. Anthropologists started looking at this and saying, hang on a minute. Kohlberg's highest post-conventional stage, it looks suspiciously like the values of a modern, Western, liberal society. So the big question became, is this really the universal pinnacle of morality? Or is it just one particular worldview that we've mistakenly labeled as the only developed one?
Well, that critique cracked the whole thing wide open, and it led to a brand new compass for navigating these moral differences, created by an anthropologist named Richard Schwader. He said, forget the single ladder. Instead, think of it as three distinct, equally valid moral languages that give us a much, much richer way of seeing the world.
The first of these is the ethic of autonomy. This is the language of me. In this world, the individual is the center of everything. The highest moral goods are things like rights, freedom, and justice. The key question is always, does this action harm another individual or take away their freedom of choice? This is, by far, the dominant ethic in most Western societies.
Second, we have the ethic of community. This is the language of us. Here, you're not just an individual. You're part of a larger whole, a family, a tribe, a nation. Morality is all about fulfilling your duties to that group, being loyal and respecting the social structure. Your personal wants and desires, they often take a back seat to the needs of the community.
And the third moral language is the ethic of divinity. This is the language of the sacred. The self is seen as a soul, a spiritual being, and the body is like a temple. So the whole moral project is about living in a way that's pure and holy, and avoiding things that cause spiritual pollution or degradation. It's about respecting a God-given order to the universe.
Okay, so now that we're armed with these three languages, let's circle all the way back to our widow in India and see if we can finally crack the code of her sin.
This slide just lays the clash out perfectly. From an autonomy perspective, telling a widow she can't eat fish is just an oppressive, sexist rule that stomps all over her personal freedom. I mean, it doesn't harm anyone, so how could it possibly be wrong? But when you look at it through the lenses of community and divinity, her actions take on this deep, profound meaning. It's her duty to her dead husband, a way to maintain spiritual purity and deal with her karmic debt. They even believe that hot foods like fish stir up worldly desires, pulling her away from her sacred duty.
And here is the absolute key. The disagreement isn't about which side is being more rational. Both sides are using reason. The difference is, they are starting from two completely different pictures of how reality itself works. For the widow, the bond of marriage continues after death. Souls can be reunited. Karma is a real force in the universe. Her choices have cosmic significance.
This whole framework doesn't just explain food rules. It helps us understand these deep conflicts over, well, everything, from our obligations to our family to fights over sacred land, all without immediately slapping a label on one side as backwards or immoral.
A super important concept here is something anthropologists call moral realism.
The idea is that for people inside a culture, their moral rules don't feel like opinions or just social customs. Not at all. They feel like objective, undeniable truths about the way the world is built, as real as gravity.
Let's look at one more really powerful example. Imagine a clash between a Native American whale hunter and an environmental activist. Here's the fascinating thing. Both of them would say they truly care about the whale. But what does that word even mean to them?
For the macaw whaler, care is a deep spiritual responsibility. It's about respecting the whale's spirit and making sure it has a proper passage into the next world. The hunt is a sacred act, a duty to the animal soul. You can just hear the mix of the community and divinity ethics in that.
But for the activist, care means protecting the whale's individual biological life. It's about preventing harm and respecting its right to live and be free, almost like a person. And that is the ethic of autonomy, pure and simple. So you have the same moral absolute, care, being interpreted through two completely different and pretty much irreconcilable moral languages.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? How can we actually use this as a tool to better understand the world?
This summary table is really the key. These three ethics come from totally different views of what a self is, an individual agent, a member of a group, or a spiritual soul. And each of those starting points lifts up a completely different set of values. Just recognizing which language someone is speaking, well, that's the first huge step to understanding where they're coming from. And this, right here, is the central lesson. When we come across a moral practice that just seems bizarre, or even flat out wrong, the most powerful question we can ask isn't, are these people immoral? It's, what moral language are they speaking? Because different doesn't mean deficient. It just means different. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. If you had to explain one of your own most deeply held moral beliefs to someone speaking a totally different moral language, how would you even begin? What obvious truth that you believe in might seem just as puzzling to them as a sin for eating fish seems to us?